It's time for global currency, but we're doing something a little different this time and basing it on agriculture that pulls together multiple skills. So I'm going to go over how it works, some laws that help guide the flow of currency, and the impact to several aspects of gameplay. So stick around, you don't want to miss this one. We're about 1 week into the server, and we're able to get a mint created, so it was time for a global currency. To operate a mint, you need a room with some tier 2 material of a moderate but small size. Then you just need to establish 3 parameters. The name of the currency, which is always fun. Ours is Agrar, short for Agrarian. Determine what kind of material you're going to use to back the currency and how much currency will be produced from each item put into the mint. Simple, right? Well, it can be, and it's easy enough to create the currency, but this singular action can set the entire tone and pace of economic growth, and even establish a basis for pricing of almost all the goods. So this season received a good bit of planning and forethought because we wanted to try something that had never been tried before, and that's a currency based on agricultural production. Why agriculture, you ask? Well, it's because the farming, gathering, and even fertilizer skills rarely get as much attention and focus by players as do many of the rock and ore skills like mining, smelting, advanced smelting, masonry, and so on. We wanted to make agriculture as important as the other skills and make it as much of a draw with enjoyable gameplay. So step 1 was to use it as the basis for our currency. This is how we did it. The overall concept and flow starts with the gatherer. The gatherer will harvest the crops. Those then get sold to the farmer to produce seeds. The other citizens of the server buy the seeds and sell those to the government mint store where they get sold in exchange for global currency. That's the big picture, but there's more to it than that. For one thing, the mint does not accept any seeds you can use to back currency, but we'll come back to that. In this flow, it's not necessarily linear. It's cyclic. When the citizen sells the seeds and gets currency, he can go buy a variety of goods from any of the other citizens, which puts that global currency into everyone's pocket. One of those pockets is the farmer's, when the citizen goes back to buy his seeds, injecting the money back into the farmer's pocket. But what about the gatherer? That farmer can't produce seeds from thin air. The farmer needs crops, so the farmer buys the crops from the gatherer, injecting money back into the gatherer's pocket, which they can use to purchase seeds to replant their fields. So they can sell seeds back to the farmer, and on it goes. Pricing in the flow of currency becomes important for fairness. The price the mint store buys seeds sets the tone for pricing, without price fixing. So we'll look at that as well. Let's say the mint store buys seeds for 1 agrar. That may be the set value for seeds, but it doesn't set the buy and sell prices among the citizens. So let's look at the whole picture. An initial suggested price has been given for the farmer to sell seeds at 0.2 agrar, and for the farmers to sell the raw crops at 0.1. Now that is just an initial price. When a citizen buys seeds and sells to the mint store, they make a profit of 0.8 on each seed. Your first reaction might be, well, that's unfair to the farmer. He's only making a quarter of what the citizen is. But that's not the case. It may even be the opposite, even in light of having to buy crops from the gatherer. Buying that crop further lowers the overall farmer profit down to 0.1. The important thing to remember is that a single farmer will serve as the distributor for multiple citizens, and so will make up for the lesser profit on the seed exchange in pure volume. I'll go over some of the volume numbers in a second, but let's look at the gatherer's pricing first. A gatherer for the first 2 or 3 levels gets approximately 3 items for each currency crop harvested. Approximately. If the gatherer has to buy a seed for 0.2, that leaves him with a profit of 0.1. That's the same as the farmer. Looking purely just at the currency demand, the gatherer's profits also scale due to higher volume in transactions, in the same ratio as the farmer. Similar to the modules in the farmer's table for seed production, the gatherer also gets more crop as they level up their skill, up to about 5 crops per plant. There's an additional bonus for gatherers, again looking only at the currency exchange and not considering the other opportunities to sell crops to cooks and other government-sponsored opportunities I'll probably cover in another video. The immediate bonus is that while harvesting, some seeds do occasionally drop, giving the gatherer some free seeds to plant or sell or do with what they want, and that don't require purchasing from the farmer. This, as well as those other government opportunities I alluded to, makes the gatherer a powerhouse of the eco-professions here in Season 6. The system also has some built-in freedom and flexibility. The suggested initial prices are exactly that, initial and suggested, because all of this can and probably should scale with the population and skill diversity. Right now, there are approximately 80 people in the DadSpeed server participating in the seed currency exchange. There's more that have logged in and getting established, but that's about how many have sold seeds so far. With 80 people, and at the suggested pricing, each farmer and gatherer can service 8 citizens to create the same profit as the 0.8 an average citizen gets. This means the server can support about 10 farmers and 10 gatherers, which is considerably more than I've seen in the past, which is maybe about 2 each. If the ratio of gatherers and farmers to citizens winds up different or even changes over time, the prices can scale. If there are more active citizens, the prices can drop slightly due to higher volumes. If there are only 4 gatherers and farmers, the prices could also drop due to the same higher volume. Each farmer-gatherer is servicing more citizens. If the number of active citizens falls over time, then the prices can increase. Again, due to achieve that balance and fairness, because now they're not having to serve as many citizens. Now, if things get really desperate, the Mint could change the amount of seeds it buys or the price of the seeds, but having a stable reference point for the citizens is probably more important than making hasty corrections to the economy. It's better to have that consistency and let the citizens actually control the pricing. Balance and fairness are essential to a thriving server. All skills should have a somewhat equal opportunity to make money and for each skill to have enjoyable gameplay. By default, the eco game, at least in its current state of development, doesn't necessarily provide this equity. This is where the government comes in. We needed to put some laws in place to help provide some fairness. One such constraint was to limit the amount of seeds one person could sell in a given day. This gives everyone a chance to acquire some daily government funds and ease the money into the economy in a way that disperses it across everyone and allows time for the economics and store prices to adjust. Another constraint was to restrict the farmers and gatherers from directly selling to the Mint themselves. In the currency flow, the farmers and gatherers make their money from selling of the currency crop products. The citizens make their money from selling the seeds to the Mint. Another opportunity and freedom opening decision was in the selection of the crops used for currency. You may have already guessed that not just any crop or seed fits into this mechanism. The currency crops had to be ones that were destroyed when harvested and required replanting. They also had to be crops that were seeds producible on the farmer's table. This left 13 crops eligible, and these 13 crops also spanned almost every biome, allowing those interested in agriculture to spread out and live wherever they wanted. Even fireweed, which grows in a tundra-like biome, became a viable farming area. Now, I mentioned that the Mint doesn't directly turn seed into currency. This is where paper comes in. As odd as it may seem, exactly what you use to back your currency isn't as important as how it gets distributed. And really, they are 2 separate things. So for flexibility, we made them 2 separate things. Seeds would be the one regular way to get currency into the hands of the citizens. But there are other government programs for labor and government purchases of materials that do that as well. To give tailors more opportunity, we used paper as the actual item that generates currency. So seeds to distribute and paper to create, which further provides more opportunities for another skill. For the government, it's all about creating opportunities and balance. This separation of distribution and creation opens the possibility to increase, decrease, add, or alter what is being used to distribute the currency, with again, those changes being to stimulate chronically lagging areas of the economy. Let me also give you another bit of data on profits. On a single plot, you can put 25 plants. At the beginning 1 to 3 levels of gathering, you get about 3 crops per plant. So that's 75 in crop yield per plot. With the 0.1 profit per raw crop, that's 7.5 agrar per claim. Now, if you're someone in the agricultural skill, you're probably dedicating most of your land to farming, but we'll be overly conservative and say that only half of your land is used for farming. We'll say the other half you use for houses, workshops, stores, and just fun stuff. Out of approximately 140 land claims you get from just skill scrolls alone, that's 70 claims for building and 70 claims for farming. 70 claims for building on might be excessive, but we'll go with it. With just 70 claims being farmed, that provides 525 agrar of profit that could be made per day. If the gatherer wants more land to farm, they could use more of their native claims for land. They could buy more claims, or start using the land renting mechanic that the DAD-Speed government will bring online. The sales around currency seeds is just a fraction of the potential. Cooks need large quantities of produce. The new biodiesel from sunflower seeds consumes vast quantities of crop seed, helping both gatherers, farmers, and millers. And we'll definitely be promoting use of the diesel generators over the wind turbines and solar panels. There's a government incentive to use wheat for mortar over sand, and that historically consumes thousands of wheat per day. So there's quite a bit of opportunity in this agrarian economy being developed. I've alluded to a bunch of laws, other than the ones controlling agrar pricing and distribution, and those will help route gathering to gatherers, provide cross-skill utility between farmers and gatherers, give more gameplay to the farmers, and even allow that renting of land to further the agriculture expansion. So you might consider this just part 1 of the focus on agrarian currency, with a lot more in a coming video about all the other opportunities and gameplay being built in to this season of DAD-Speed. You can also get a free copy of Eco by providing a comment on this video. This is week 2 of a 4-week period where I'm running this giveaway, so you can watch each video I produce and provide a comment on each one for multiple chances to win. And it may not even be an Eco video. I'm also a bit enthralled with space engineers, and DAD-Speed hosts a server there as well. So depending on what I might get hooked on a particular week, it could be either one. But this looks like it could be the best season of DAD-Speed ever. Like and subscribe and see how it goes, and I'll be talking to you later.